But today we're going to focus on 2 whole chapters, all of chapter 6, all of chapter 7. But if you didn't get any of my updates, don't be nervous. I asked you guys to do homework and to read all that because I said when we went into this Nehemiah sermon series, we were going to some weeks go verse by verse like I like to through the passage, but some weeks we're going to pick out and pull out the main theme, the main idea of the passage. And today's main theme that we're going to be talking about is being devoted to excellence. That as Christians, we are called, because of all Christ has done, to be devoted to excellence in every single thing that we do as a church. Now, Anna, I put up a picture. Is there a picture of a gentleman? Anybody know who this is? Al Davis. Who was Al Davis, Steve? Head coach, owner. I mean, this guy was a guy who really gave his whole life to the Raider organization. Whether they were in Oakland or Los Angeles, he poured out everything. And he had this slogan, which was a commitment to excellence. Now, this guy, in 1972, I believe it was, he began being the owner of the Oakland Raiders, the then Oakland Raiders. They eventually moved to Los Angeles, back to Oakland. Now they're in Las Vegas. But he had this commitment that he wanted to do everything in his power for the Oakland Raider organization. They'll always be Oakland Raider to me, to do everything in his power with complete excellence. And so he commits to do that. I have a few other statements here I wanted to read that he's kind of popular for saying. And one of them is this. If you've watched football any amount of time, it is this. Just win, baby. Just win, baby. And the reason he says this is because he's like, look, our goal, our mission, our vision is just to win. And because he was committed to excellence, he had confidence in the idea that he would win football games. Didn't always happen, especially towards the ender part of his life, but he had a commitment to winning. He says this, once a Raider, always a Raider. What he says is if you play one snap for the Raider organization, you are part of the family. And I can say the same thing here. If you've been to one service, you are part of the family. We have somebody special, Kathy. I'm not going to put the spotlight on you too much, but I met her this morning. Kathy went to Gateway in the 60s under Pastor Sykes and was baptized here. So talk to her after the service. We always love hearing of people from the past who have made Gateway what it is. So welcome, Kathy. Also, this is what Al Davis says. The fire that burns the brightest in the Raiders organization is the will to win. Again, this is his vision. Our vision is we're going to win football games. Now, how do you make this happen is what's the important thing. So for as Christians, our mission is to see people come to know Jesus Christ. How do we make that happen is the key question. He says this, you don't just adjust, you just dominate. Again, we're not going to make adjustments. We're just going to dominate on the football field. Why? Because he was so committed to excellence. He knew in the front office he had the best coaches and management. He tried to get the best players. He tried to have the best draft. He tried to do everything right so he could fulfill this vision. Then he says this, I had a dream that someday I would build the finest organization in professional sports. That was his life mission. He didn't accomplish that. I mean, I'm a Raider fan, but they don't have the best organization of football. But I do know he went to 5 Super Bowls. I do know he won 3 of those Super Bowls. I do know that he has the 3rd largest stadium in professional sports around the world in Las Vegas right now because of his legacy that he did with the Oakland Raiders and the Los Angeles Raiders. I do know that he passed on his legacy to his son, who is now the owner and running the organization. And if you like football and you're paying attention, they're making some serious moves in this offseason, much like the Miami Dolphins are. Maybe we'll get a AFC championship, who knows? But his commitment to excellence is why he could say these things. He says this, they said you had to take what the defense give you. No, we're not just going to take it. We're going to take what they give. We're going to take what we want. Again, this desire to be committed to excellence. We got the best of everything is his mission. And then the final statement I'll read from Al Davis is, aside from my will to win and my commitment to excellence, the fire that burns brightest in me is the great love and enthusiasm that I have and have had for the game of football and for everyone and everything connected with it. I love the game, I love the league, and I love my team. So Al Davis died in 2011. It's funny, in 2007, he sold a part of the Raiders, and he said, look, I'm going to retire once we win 2 more Super Bowls or I die. Ultimately, they didn't win 2 more Super Bowls. He passed away. But one thing we can say about Al Davis is he lived what he proclaimed. His vision was to be the best, to pour his life into the Oakland Raiders, the Los Angeles Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders if he was alive. He lived, slept, and died Raider football. What woke him up in the morning was, how can we make the Raiders better? No doubt when he went to sleep, all he was thinking about is how can we make the Raiders better? How can we just win, baby? And think about this. It's just football, right? Some of y'all sitting here, I was like, who's Al Davis? Who are the Raiders? What, that football? You mean kicking? And no. Like, it's just football. Like, I've always thought this. You have this goal of winning a Super Bowl, and then you win it, and it's great, and you celebrate. What happens the next day? Because winning that Super Bowl isn't going to fulfill you. You've got to keep trying for more and trying for more and trying for more and trying for more and trying for more. It's just football, y'all. This man gave his life, and to his dying breath gave his life to play football and to manage football and to coach football and try to win at football. Like years ago, it was just this oblong ball made out of an actual pigskin. That's why we call it the pigskin or pigskin classics. It's just football. What if we, as followers of Christ, had the same drive? What if we, as followers of Christ, said, you know what, we are going to be committed to excellence. We are going to do everything well. We are going to be devoted to following the Lord with our lives. Everything we do, if we wake up, we're thinking about how we're going to serve the Lord. When we go to bed, we're thinking about how we're going to serve the Lord. What if we came alongside the Lord and said, you know what, Lord, we are not just going to be lip service. We're going to be committed and devoted to every single thing as it pertains to following you. See, part of our values as a church, our first one is devotion. It's where we get the name for the sermon series. Being devoted is following someone, loving someone, being committed to that person. If I'm devoted to Tina, I love her, I'm there for her, I sacrifice for her. And here's what the rest of this value says, that we're devoted, that we are going to be committed, we are committed to being devoted to God and striving for excellence in everything that we do in honor of God, who is completely devoted to us. So this is my vision. This is what I value. And I'm trying to hope and see that you guys will value this too. And as we sit here, maybe we have a definition in our mind of what we think excellence is. And for a lot of us, we probably have a different definition of what excellence is. For some of us, we could do something, be like, hey, that's excellence. For others of us, we could do something and look at what they thought was excellent and be like, yeah, that's not really that excellent. But what is excellence? Really, at the root of excellence, the word excellent is the word excel. And to excel is to go above and beyond, to leave other people behind you. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about in the church world, but in the world, like to excel is we're going to be the best, business. We're going to be the best tax accountants. We're going to be the best everything. We're going to be above. We're going to be a step above everything and everyone else. Now, how do we apply that to the church, though? Because that's not the way the church works. For us to say we're going to excel as a church, it means that whether we are serving communion, we're going to do it with excellence. Whether we're leading worship, we're going to do it with excellence. We're going to excel. Whether we're preaching sermons, we're going to excel. Whether we are taking care of our kids, we are going to excel. Our goal, our drive is to do everything in an excellent way, not to be subpar, not to cut corners. And one of my least favorite statements in all of the English language is this: it's good enough. Have you ever done something with somebody and you're like, oh, it's good enough? That drives me mad. I mean, some things in life, maybe you can get by with good enough, but that's not what God wants from us. He doesn't want us to serve Him and be like, all right, Lord, what I've given it's good enough. Like, I instill this in my kids, especially my boys, because I don't know, guys tend to be harder on their sons. And for my boys, I'm trying to raise God-fearing boys who love the Lord. And I can tell you with all my heart that they do. I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years one of them standing up here preaching, or even less. I'm trying to instill in my boys people who love one another, who love you and go above and beyond, and who are gentlemen. And they still have chivalry for ladies in their heart, which is something that has been dying in our culture. And for my boys, I'm always challenging them, do right. And for Michael, I'll call him out. His job is to take out the trash. If you see the trash filling up, get it outside. On the night when there's trash, take it to the curb. And Michael could attest to this. If I go out and I see trash on the ground, I'm like, Michael, pick up the trash. Do things with excellence. Be devoted to excellence. Be committed to excellence. If you're going to take out the trash, do it with excellence. For Marcus, I love Marcus. Marcus loves to tinker. If something's broken, he's like, can I rip it apart? And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, yeah. Other times it's like, no, even though it's broken, it still has value. We can sell it. But a lot of times he'll take things apart, or he likes to fix things. And Probably about 6 weeks ago, I want to guess, Tina had this fence. It was broke, and Marcus took the initiative to go into my workshop, and he got, glue and hammer and nails and all this stuff to attempt to fix the fence, which to me was honorable. I was like, man, that's awesome. I didn't even have to tell him. He's just stepping up, and he's serving his mom, and he's using the gifts that I've tried to instill in him. So he does his job. About 2 hours later, I'm going out walking through the yard. And as I'm walking through the yard, I trip upon my hammer and my nails and the wood glue and everything he left behind while he's sitting in the house playing video games. And I'm like, Marcus, be committed to excellence. If you were going to fix the fence, that's honorable, but finish the job. Don't leave a task undone. That's what excellence is. It doesn't settle for less. And I'm not knocking you boys. You guys are awesome, awesome young men, and I'm very proud of who you are. I'm just giving out little examples of how in everything in life we should be shooting for excellence. But most importantly, when it comes to ministry, we better be giving our all. We should be giving our all. But why? Why do we need excellence in ministry? Because all we talk about is grace, right? Like, grace tells us that we're not as good as we think we are. Grace tells us that we are failures, because if we weren't, we wouldn't need grace. So I know that none of us are going to excel and be perfect in the things we do for the Lord. So let's get that mindset out the way right now. You will never, I will never, none of us will never be perfectly excellent in every single thing we do for the Lord. But our drive, just like Al Davis didn't win a Super Bowl every year, his drive, his commitment was to be excellent in everything he did. He didn't want to settle for less. And the reason we try to strive for excellence in ministry is because we follow a God who is exceedingly awesome and excellent in every single thing he does. His word is excellent, his ways are excellent, his grace is excellent, his love is excellent. Everything he does is excellent. And this is why in Psalm 150 it says that we should praise him according to his excellent greatness. So why should we try to excel and be excellent? Because that's who God is. Now, again, you might be sitting there saying, Mike, I'm not God. I'm not Jesus. I'm not excellent. Of course, God is excellent. I hope God is excellent. But here's what Paul says in Ephesians 5:1, that we are to be imitators of God. This means that we should imitate God's love. We should imitate God's kindness. We should imitate God's compassion, his love for and value for human beings made in his image. But part of this is also that we should be imitators of God in the way that he is excellent, and we should strive for excellence as well. Paul in 1 Corinthians says, whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Do all to the glory of God. If you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, make that sandwich to the glory of God and make it with excellence. If you are flipping a cheeseburger, making a cheeseburger, make it with excellence. If you're painting a structure, paint it with excellence, because ultimately what you're doing your work for is to the glory of God. Now, these are silly statements. And again, I'm talking more so in our ministry. Whatever God has given to you, do it. Whatever you do it all to the glory of God. Now, we have some examples of this in the scriptures. Like what we see in the Bible is a bunch of broken people. Everybody's broken. But what we see is people who commit to excellence. Think of the story of Joseph. Joseph gets arrested, and he's a slave, and he goes to prison. And no matter where Joseph found himself, he always tried to be excellent. Therefore, because of his excellence, God used him for more and more and more. See, when we're faithful in little things, when we're excellent in little things, God will use us for more and more things. Think of our man Nehemiah. Nehemiah, he rose most likely to be the second most powerful man in a foreign country, where he was taken, and his family and his grandfather and his grandmother were taken as slaves. Why do you think Nehemiah rose in such power? It's because he walked with the Lord, and the things he did, he would do with excellence. That doesn't go unnoticed. This week I was reading some books, and I came upon this quote from a gentleman named Andreas Kostenberger. And this quote kind of captures really what I'm trying to communicate here. He says, as committed Christian disciples, we are now expected to serve God with distinction, not because we have to, but because we want to. God is more than worthy of us giving him everything we've got, rather than just presuming on his grace and being satisfied with mediocrity. So what he does is he has this high view of who God is, and he says, hey, because of who God is, let's not be mediocre Christians. Once again, I've quoted Paul in 1 Corinthians. Here's what Paul says in Colossians, chapter 3, verses 23 through 24. Paul says, whatever you do, work heartily, or we can say work excellently to God. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord, not for men. Stop and think about what Paul just said there. When we serve in ministry, am I ultimately serving you right now? I mean, yes, but who am I ultimately, the highest being that I'm serving right now with what I'm doing? God. See, when we work, when we serve, whether it's singing or youth group or hospitality area or running the soundboard or whatever we're doing, we're ultimately serving God. Not just man, but God. And Paul then says, knowing that from the Lord you will receive an inheritance as your reward, you are serving the Lord Jesus Christ. Everything we do should be with excellence. God is excellent. Jesus is an example of this. We follow Jesus, who, we always say this, he's 100% man, he's 100% God. But the fact that he's 100% man means that when Jesus was born in a manger, he didn't have this imprint of divinity on his mind. He didn't have this knowledge of everything the earth is doing. He had to literally grow in stature, the scriptures tell us. He had to grow in wisdom. He had to go to school. He had to learn how to add and subtract. He had to learn all these things. He did this because the scriptures say he emptied himself. He did this because the scriptures say so he could become like us, so he could relate to us and understand all of our emotions, everything that we're going through. But even in his humanity, Jesus did everything with excellence. His first miracle was turning water into wine. John chapter 2. And in this chapter, in this section, what Jesus does is at this wedding banquet where they're used to having this great wine first. Everybody gets drunk off the expensive wine, and then they bring out the cheap $3 boxed wine. Who drinks boxed wine? I'll never understand that. Actually, a lot of does, I think. But it's the cheapest. It's the worst. It's like it's not good. And what Jesus does is wine runs out, the worst wine, everybody's smashed. Jesus could have easily said, all right, I'm going to bring out the $3. What's that one wine cost, like Sumter Hill or something? Or some of y'all are like, why are we talking about wine? We're Baptist. Jesus could have brought out the cheap wine. But what does he make? The best, right? And the people at the wedding are like, oh my gosh, like we usually have cheap wine by now. We're already filling it. Like, why do we need this expensive wine? But this wine is the best wine. Because even in that, Jesus was excellent. Even when we think of Jesus when he is doing stuff like feeding the crowds, 5,000, he does that with excellence. He does it with order. He does it with purpose. He's like, look, disciples, here's some of my order. Go out there and sit these people, these ladies, men, and children in groups of people. And then when it's over, clean up everything. And then y'all have some, leftovers wrapped in foil in the refrigerator for the next day. Whoever eats leftovers? Oh, man. Nobody ever eats leftovers in our house. I mean, maybe we need to learn, unless it's high-value leftovers. What you said, you want them? Okay. We'll pass them on. Tina's a really good cook. But he has order. He always has order with the things that he does. He doesn't cut corners. He doesn't just settle for less. He tries to order every single thing in his life for the glory of God. I mean, think about even this. When Jesus dies and resurrects, and they had buried him with linen cloths, he wakes up. It's like, I don't need these cloths anymore, right? He breaks out of them or takes them off. And when they came to the tomb, what did they find with those clothes that he was wearing, the cloths he was wearing? Were they just thrown in the corner, kicked in the corner of the floor? They were neatly folded. Like, how many of y'all take off your clothes in the morning and fold them? I guarantee if I came to most of your house right now, I'd find clothes in the corner, clothes in the bathroom floor, clothes in the closet, clothes just scattered everywhere, totes of clothes, baskets of clothes, clothes. Some of y'all are saying no. That's one thing I excel at, is I make sure my clothes are put away, but I know a lot of people don't. For Jesus, he's like, I don't need these things, but I'm going to excel even in these cloths. I'm going to fold them and nicely put them down. Even when Jesus is writing sermons, he excels at them. He takes time. Like, Jesus never wrote a 4 a.m. special, is what pastors call it. When you're so busy all week, you neglect Bible study, and you're like, oh no, the people need to hear something. I'm going to write a sermon at 4 a.m. That's not what Jesus did. He did some of the most memorable things imaginable. Some of the most memorable sermons imaginable came from the mouth and heart of Jesus. Because he did everything with excellence. That's who he is. That's who his character is. So if we're going to focus on being excellent as a people, that's not going to just happen by chance. Like if you want to make an excellent meal, that doesn't just happen by chance. There are things that we have to do in order to see excellence come into our lives. Now let's take this mindset and let's take this focus into the stories of Nehemiah. And let me remind you where Nehemiah is at. Remember, chapter 1, he hears of the burden. He hears of the walls being down. He hears of the destruction. He prays about it. God gives him a vision. He goes before King Artaxerxes. He's like, hey, send me back so I could fix the walls. He gets back. He fixes the walls, and they're working hard, and opposition comes. But now where we find ourselves in these 2 chapters, in 6 and 7, the walls are complete. The work is practically done of what he set out to do. But I want to point out to you how he was successful in doing this. And we're going to have 3 truths this morning, and I always like to point this out if it's heavy. The first one, this intro is the heaviest part. The first point is going to be the longest of the 3, and then the next 2 are going to be pretty quick. But look with me what Nehemiah does. How does he accomplish this? Truth number 1 this morning is excellence prioritizes its schedule. If we are going to strive for excellence, we have to have a priority over our schedules. We have to have a priority over our lives. Look what Nehemiah does in chapter 6, verse 1. In chapter 1, verse 1, it says that the guys Sanballat and Tobiah, they came to Nehemiah. And he says that the walls, everything wasn't completely done at this point. But look down at verse 2. It says that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me saying, come and let us meet together. So here's some of his haters that we talked about for the past couple weeks. And they're coming to Nehemiah and just simply saying, hey, Nehemiah, let's go to Starbucks and chat. Let's go hang out. Let's just go chill and, let's have an hour of just kicking back. We need to talk to you. We want to just hear your heart. And Nehemiah knows, if you read more of this passage, that they're not there for good. They're there for harm. But they're trying to meet with Nehemiah. Now, in verse 3, here's Nehemiah's response. This is something that, if we are going to be excellent in what we do for the Lord, this has to be our response. He says to them, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. No, I won't go to Starbucks. Why should the work stop while I leave and come down to you? And see, what Nehemiah just said right now is, I am completely devoted to excellence in serving my God. And because of that, I am not going to be a yes man. Because of that, I am going to reject even if you're buying me my coffee that is outrageous at Starbucks, I have to say no, because my life is prioritized. My schedule is going to be prioritized. I am going to focus on what should be the most important thing in all of our lives, our commitment to the Lord. And then it says in verse 4, they came to him and it says 4 more times. 4 more times. Come on, let's go to Starbucks, Nehemiah. Let's go out to eat, Nehemiah. Let's go to the movies, Nehemiah. Let's go to that graduation party of our friend and the family and our cousin and third cousins and uncles of grandmas and aunts. Confusion, right? We don't even know them, but we always say yes. And Nehemiah again reiterates, no, I'm focused on what I, as a man, need to focus on. And then the next verse, verse 5, he says once again that they came 5 times. Come on, Nehemiah, you sure? Get your favorite pizza, man. Get your favorite turkey subs, man. Let's just go out and eat. And once again, Nehemiah reiterates, nah, that's not that important. Verse 3 is the key to everything here. Because what verse 3 is telling us is that Nehemiah is committed to that which is worth committing to. He is uber focused on serving the Lord. And for us, if we want to be excellent, particularly in ministry, what the Lord has put on our heart, we have to have a dedicated life. Dedicated to what? To God. Dedicated to focusing on Him and His will and His desires for what we should be doing. Here's what we need to learn to do as followers of Christ. Is we need to learn to say a 2-letter word, starts with N and ends with O. Anybody? No. See, your college degree paid off, Alana. It was worth it. We need to learn to say no to people. We can't always say yes. See, some of our lives are so busy. Some of our lives are we're juggling so much. There's no room in our lives for anything. We just say yes. Jokingly, like I said, yes, I'll go to a graduation party. Yes, I'll go to an anniversary thing. Yes, I'll go to a birthday party. Yes, I'll go out to Starbucks. Yes, I'll go to the movies. Yes, we'll go out to the picnic. Yes, I'll go for a walk for you. Yes, 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 yes. And what always suffers is not your social life, but the mission God has called you to be excellent in serving Him. See, there's a real thing called burnout, too. Like, I'm very mindful. I try to pay attention really closely to our staff and to all of you. That's why we try to simplify our church calendar to make sure we're not doing too much and burning you out and stretching you thin. But for some of you, you have lives in which, like there's not a whole lot you can say no to. Y'all got babies. You can't be like, God, no, don't need to take care of the baby today. I got to serve the Lord. I got a job. Oh, I can't do that. I got to serve the Lord. I'm not calling you to neglect those things, obviously. But I'm saying, really evaluate your life. What are the things that you are consistently and constantly, as a follower of Christ, saying yes to, and that is burdening and overwhelming your schedule? You are juggling too much, and you are going to burn out, and the mission of God and what God is calling you to is going to suffer because of this. We've got to learn to say no. And for some of you, like this thought just popped in my mind, for some of you, it's maybe not saying no to people and events, but maybe saying no to your stinking phone. I wish I would have filtered that. Maybe it's saying no to your phones. Man, our phones are corrupting us. Not just by what we think, but they have become such an idol. They overpower us. Like, there's people who can never put down their phone. They're always got to be on it. Even in church, they're on their phone. If you go out to lunch, they're on their phone. If you go to bed, you're on their phone. Like, I literally have people who say, if I'm on the toilet, I'm on my phone. Man. Some of us need to learn to say no and put the thing down. And be devoted to excellence in what the Lord is calling us to be as people. I know for me, I learned this the hard way. I burnt myself out so many times. Man, I was a yes man. Yes, yes, yes. And here's the thing. There's a lot of times in life where there are things that seemingly seem good that we maybe want to say yes to. But again, if it's going to alter our excellence and the one thing that God is calling us to, or the couple things God is calling us to, we need to say no. So for example, for me, before Gateway, if something came up that seemed good, I would be there. Something like, hey, can you come and check out this prayer group, this prayer meeting we're having at this school? Yeah, I'll be there. Hey, we're going to have this pastor's retreat. Will you come? Yeah, I'll be there. Hey, can you come hear what the Lord is doing through us and these kids who are getting saved at this school? Yeah, I'll be there. Those things all seem seemingly good, right? But at the same time, I have one priority as a follower of Christ. And if I can't stick to my priority, then I need to say no. And so for me, and hopefully some of y'all could learn from some of the things I've tried to implement in my life, is I've tried to put order in my life. And I've tried to put structure in my life so that I can say no at certain times. So for example, my Mondays and Wednesdays, those are my busiest days. If you want to nag me and bother me and love on me or meet with me or have coffee with me or complain or encourage, if you want to do any of that, Mondays and Wednesdays would honestly be my best days. Because from the second I wake up until the second I close my eyes, it's church work. It's administrative stuff. It's catching up on emails. Like I said, it's meetings. It's all this stuff. There's not really much else I do in those days. And then my Tuesdays is, what day is Tuesday? Thank you, Queen's Day. That's the day I commit to my wife and I give her all of me. Whatever she wants to do. Even if it's, man, I'm glad she's not out here. Even if it's quality time. Like I've told you, I struggle with that. Like it's just laying. Like I'm not a guy who likes to stand still, as you could tell. Like I told Adam Alana, by the time I get home, I have like 8,000 steps on my watch because all I do is walk back and forth up here. I can't sit still, but even if it's that, I'll do it. And then my Thursdays and my Fridays are my busiest days when it comes to sermon prep. Like I've already started prep. Like literally this afternoon, I'm going to be in my office at around 4 o'clock. I'm going to print out the text for 2 Sundays, or 3 Sundays actually, because it's Resurrection Sunday and stuff. And then I'm just going to start processing it. So it gets in my mind, but I don't do a lot of work. That's Thursday and Friday when I do the brunt of that work. So most of the time on Thursday and Friday or Tuesdays, if you want to get a hold of me and do something, I'm most likely going to say no. Let's do it on Monday. Let's do it on Wednesday. Because this is the way I could order my life. Saturdays, we're supposed to do family days. And I said the past week, it's been rough. I went 10 days without a day off. So I'm telling you what I try to accomplish. I'm not perfect in it, but I need to make sure I'm doing better in it. We've got to schedule ourselves. If we think we're going to be excellent, or if we desire to be excellent, we've got to remove things from our lives. We've got to prioritize things in our lives. What if Nehemiah was a yes man? Yeah, let me put down the trowel. Let me put down the bricks. Let me put down the mortar. Let me put down the chisel. Let me put down the hammer. We could go over to Starbucks. We wouldn't be reading the passage and marveling over all this group of people did, Nehemiah and this group of followers of God, all that they did to excel and the excellence that came out of them. We wouldn't be reading about this if they were just yes men. Like I said, excellence in ministry and serving the Lord will not just happen by osmosis, y'all. Like, you've got to put in work. And if you don't have time to put in work, it's probably because you're a yes person, saying yes, 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 yes to everything else. And if we are going to rise and continue to rebuild as a church, we've got to get focused in on the most important thing that is worthy of committing to, which is the Lord himself. So excellence focuses its schedule, and truth too is commitment to order is a sign of excellence as well. For Nehemiah, they've been working on this wall, but one of the things he's doing now as the wall is finalizing is he's putting systems in place. He's putting procedures in place. He's doing things in order to make sure things are functioning well. In Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 1, it says this, "Now when the wall had been built," notice it says, "I had set up." This is intentionality. This is him saying, all right, I am intentionally going to do something in order to make sure everything is functioning well. He says he set up the doors, but then he says he set up the gatekeepers. This is our welcome team. How awesome was it coming into a welcome team today? I loved it. Thank you guys for serving. But more importantly for them, these gatekeepers made sure the bad people weren't coming in. Like here, we don't want, welcome team, don't keep anybody out the doors, right? I mean, if they have a shotgun on them or something, like maybe tell us, we'll keep them out. But we want everybody to come. And Nehemiah is setting up these procedures, and I love what he sets up next. The singers, he was so committed to being joyful in worship and singing to the Lord that the next thing he sets up is to make sure there's singers in place, which we're going to have a sermon on worship coming up, singing through worship. And then it says the Levites had, what's the word? Appointed. Here's more procedures, more order within the church. Then if we look down at verse 2 right there, it says that I, what? Gave. Here's order. Here's work. Here's the leader doing something. My brother Hananiah. Do you guys remember Hananiah? What did we read about Hananiah? Chapter 1, first week. Y'all remember? He's the one who went to Jerusalem and came back and told Nehemiah about the condition, remember? And then it says, I gave my brother Hananiah, and Hananiah, the governor of the castle, charge over Jerusalem. So do you see all this order once things are in place? And then if we skip down to verse 5 of chapter 7, it says more. And then he says, then God put in my heart. And as I keep going through Nehemiah, I just keep seeing so many parallels. Like there's almost daily these thoughts and these minds or these ideas that pop into my mind that is coming from the Lord of things that we need to do and things we need to accomplish and what the future looks like and what the vision's going to be. And for Nehemiah, the Lord is working through him. He's continuing to give him vision. And he says what the Lord put in his heart to do was to assemble. Once again, this is order, right? If you buy a bookshelf from IKEA and you bring it home, it looks great when you're there. Then you have like a million. Well, IKEA's pretty good at it, but usually you have like a million pieces, a million screws. And what do you have to do? You have to assemble it. You have to build it from the ground up. So what the Lord put on Nehemiah's heart was to have order, to assemble from the ground up the things that are happening around Jerusalem. And then he says he had to assemble the nobles and the officials and the people to be enrolled by genealogy. So even the word enrolled there is something that is having to happen. Now this is what is crazy. What I started to say is, as we have gone through this Nehemiah sermon series, I just feel like, man, we're just walking beside the Holy Spirit through this book. I mean, Danny and I were in here last week, and I think Danny was sitting here, I was in the front chair, and we were talking. I told him this. I said, Danny, it is just crazy that each week I open up the scriptures, and what I see is a parallel with everything that God is doing through us right now. And here's the thing. It's not like I sat back. I mean, yes, I studied the scriptures. I knew Nehemiah. We planned it well in advance what we were going to preach. But it's not like I said, oh, when we get to chapter 7, we need to be talking about building. We need to be talking about order. It's just happening. And it's crazy the way that it's working, because when I read this passage and I see the order he's putting in place, I think of all the order we're putting in place at Gateway. I mentioned the welcome team. That's awesome. Again, thank you so much for the volunteers who are doing that and taking care of that, and Alina who is heading it up. It is an awesome thing to have here at Gateway. Next week, we're going to have a Connect table in the back near the sound booth, and this is going to be for visitors. When we have visitors, Adam or me or somebody's usually up here, and we'll hold up the Connect card and say, hey, if you're new with us, fill out this card. You can leave it on your seat or drop it in the offering box. Well, now we're going to say, hey, if you're new with us, take the Connect card in the back to the Connect area, and we're going to have a little table up there with a little banner, and one of our pastors will stand back there, probably me most of the time, and we're going to have a little gift for them and love on them and honor them for visiting with us, because we value when people visit with us. And so we're putting in order, we're putting in systems, we're putting in all this order in God's church. Even the communion ministry, we talked in the Sunday school class this morning, and I said I would love at least 4 people who, since we're doing this every month now, to come in and fill up the juice cups and break the bread and pray over it if you would like. And order is happening. Now, let me ask you a question. If you know the scriptures, or even in your personal life, when order happens and it's accomplished and we're devoted to excellence, what usually happens next? For me, when I read the scriptures and what we see in the life of Nehemiah, what comes next is increase. What comes next is fruit. What comes next is God working. I've been telling you guys this ever since we started this Nehemiah sermon series, that there's a certain buzz among you guys. Every week I'm hearing of ministry and ideas and people stepping up to serve. Literally since we started this Nehemiah sermon series, I mean, we got a lot of people, some people away today, but we've almost doubled in the amount of people who are coming. People are coming back, and they're getting excited about serving the Lord and stepping up. Every week I say, do you guys see how God is working? Do you see the work of the Holy Spirit that's taken place here at Gateway? See, we're setting up structure in order to see God at work and to see how God functions through his church, who is committed to excellence and is committed to being dedicated to him. I think it was in August, if I'm not mistaken, of 2018, I shared this illustration with you guys. And it's kind of goes with what I'm saying now, but I saw this pastor, and there's a beautiful illustration, and he had this bowl, and in that bowl there were 8 oranges. And he said what the oranges represent is people, and what the bowl represents is structure and people who are buying in, and vision and excitement and excellence. And he said, as you have this bowl a certain size and you try to add more oranges in, it won't fit. They fall over because the structure and the buy-in is maybe small, right? But what he said is, as you cast vision, as people buy in and people get involved and people get excited, you can make that bowl bigger. So he took this bowl and he dropped the 8 oranges in, and then he added 8 more oranges. And he's like, look, when people are buying in and there's excellence, more people are coming. God is blessing. The bowl has expanded. And then he put the 17th orange in and it fell off the side. And so he said, as you continue to get excited, as you continue to cast vision and you continue to implement the vision and people are buying in, you have a bigger bowl and there's more servants and more people are stepping up. So he throws those 16 oranges in and then he adds 16 more oranges. So now you see 32 oranges. And then the process just continues and continues and continues. And this is where we find ourselves, Gateway. Our bowl right now might be a particular size, but the bowl has just shifted in size. And so what we're going to see over the coming weeks is more and more oranges beginning to fit into this bowl. And over the coming months and years, we're going to continue to cast vision and excitement and call for devotion to excellence and train leaders so that our bowl becomes bigger and bigger. Not that we're going to hoard people, because y'all already know the vision. The vision is to get a certain amount of people, healthy people, and send them out to plant more gospel-centered churches in Miami and beyond. But we see the vision begin to take place. When order comes, the increase comes. And that's my third and final truth. As you see, a result of excellence is the fruit that we're talking about. Look at the result of their commitment to excellence if you have your Bibles open. Let's go back to chapter 6, verse 15. In chapter 6, verse 15, it's on the screen. It says, so the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month of Elul in 52 days. 52 days. How is that possible? If you remember a few weeks back, we put a graphic on the screen that showed all the stuff they had to fix, from gates to towers to walls to houses to all types of things. I mean, and in 52 days, these people accomplished it. Why? Because they were devoted to God and they were committed to excellence, and they prioritized their schedule to focus on what was the most important thing that they should be committing to in their life, which is serving the Lord. See, for Nehemiah, he has a very focused life. Let me ask you this morning, is your life focused? Is your life focused? Or are you a yes man, a yes woman? Are you tugged all around the place all week, and what God gets is usually our leftovers, and a hope that we will have excellence? Is your life focused? See, for Nehemiah, he was completely focused because he put these parameters in his life. Some of y'all, again, you need to say no. You need to put parameters in your life. You need to focus on what God is calling you here to do for Him. And when we do that, what happens is fruit. When we do that, what happens is excellence. And what happens is order in the church that we see, again, Nehemiah is committed to. And because he's committed to it, he sees fruit. Now, I want to point out one more verse that was very interesting to me. If you look at Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 4, I believe I had a slide for that, I'm not sure, but in chapter 7, verse 4, it makes this interesting statement. He says that the city was wide and large. So Jerusalem was big, it was wide, it was large, it was a big city, but the people within it were few, and no houses had been rebuilt. Why is this significant to me? Because when I read this, I saw two main things that come out of this. Number one, that it was a big place that a lot of people could fit in. And when I think of our campus at Gateway, we have 10 acres sitting in the middle of Miami. That's unheard of. We have a decent-sized chapel. We have a great big campus here. Yes, we have a good amount of people coming, but there's room for a lot more. And when he says, like, the city was empty, like, we're not empty, but there's a lot of people who can still come. We still got some chairs in storage. It's like the church is prepping, it's getting primed. It might seem not as full as we want it to be, but the day is coming when it will be. And for Nehemiah, he knows that. And so get this. When the city was empty, he was still committed to excellence. It'd be like me saying, none of y'all are here. It's a one-man show, Mike Solomon, nobody else. And I'm going to still preach the best sermons I possibly can. I'm still going to make sure this place is clean. I'm still going to make sure everything's in place, because I don't care if there's one person here now. I know one day there's going to be hundreds. And for Nehemiah, it's like, nobody's here yet, but we are prepping. Y'all realize what we're prepping for, right? The increase. For more and more people to be coming, more and more people to know Jesus, more and more people to be discipled, more and more people to be sent out. And nobody's there yet, but they work diligently because they're committed to excellence and committed to following the Lord. And then what we see in this book is the increase. If you read through all of chapter 7 through verse 73, what we end up seeing is around 50,000 souls being invited back home to the city of God, the city of Jerusalem. And so I want to ask you guys as we close one question. One simple question. Anna, throw that last big, bold question up. Who is your one? Who is your one? Here's what I'm getting at. Here's the question I'm asking. Who is the person right now who doesn't go to church, who hasn't been to church, who maybe never stepped into church or whatever? They're at your job, they're at your place you hang out, where you have hobbies, they're at your schools, they're somewhere. Who is that one person that you need to invite to church? We don't stop at one, we start at one. And then when you invite the one, you keep inviting the one, you keep inviting the one, you keep inviting the one. Who is that one? Who is that one person that the Lord has put on your heart right now? And my challenge to you is over the next couple of weeks to work up the nerve. And let's be real as Christians. We're not all super holy Christians who are not nervous to invite people to church. There's nerves that come with it. But who is that one person over the next couple of weeks you're going to commit to praying for and inviting to church? Because think about this. If every one of you that I looked at right now invited one person to church, next week our church would be double. It would be blowing up just like Jerusalem was. One person. Who is your one? And I want to close with one very brief story. And this person doesn't know I'm going to talk about them. I'm kind of smiling and smirking because I know I'm going to get in trouble for it. But I want to just point out one person here this morning, and it's my oldest daughter, Michaela. She knew it, like she's rolling her eyes at me. Michaela is a quiet girl until you get to know her. Then sometimes she might not stop talking, but she's pretty quiet and laid back. And one thing about Michaela is when you get to know her, you realize that, man, she has this really deep love and burden for humanity. Like if people are struggling or people are suffering or people need to come to church, like she has a deep compassion for people like that. And one of the things I wanted to point out with Michaela is, even though she's young, there's a lot of people in here older than Michaela, from what I could see, is she's the number one inviter of people in this church. Like Kayla doesn't have this phrase in her mind. I'm sure she does now, but for her it's always, who is my one? Who is my one? Who is my one? And over the years, like I don't know how many countless people Kayla would say to me, Daddy, I invited them to church. They didn't come, but I invited them. Countless. Countless. But we also know this, that because of Michaela's inviting, at least 8 people who don't know the Lord have come through the youth ministry, and a couple have even been here on Sunday mornings at times because she invites. She has that mindset, who is my one? And Kayla, it's honorable, and I'm very proud of you for doing that. And I know you don't like the spotlight, so forgive me, but it's a great example. Who is your one this morning? Who are you inviting? And how are we going to schedule our lives to be focused and committed on being excellent in every single thing we do for a worthy God?